Paul Kariuki Wandere is a young man clocking 40 years this year. Actually, I'm clocking 40 years this month. I've had a journey, quite a long journey as a man, born and bred in a place called Kabete. Kabete is in Kiambu County. Schooled in local schools there. Went to Egerton University for my higher education. Did Bachelor of Commerce. Veered a bit to do postgraduate diploma in education because I felt I had a passion for teaching. Did a master's in an MBA in strategic management and currently finalizing a master's in counseling. So I, as a profession, I would call myself a teacher, a counselor, and a mentor. Exactly. You see, one of the greatest challenges I think in the university, especially after Form 4, is balancing between finding your career path and finding your passion. Unfortunately for so many people, and I think this is a very great mistake students make, they follow them, forgetting that the most important thing is your passion. Because careers will never pay what passions can pay. And so what I did for the first 4 years in BCom, I was following my passions can pay. And so what I did for the first 4 years in BCom, I was following my career path. Because nilikuwa nasema, I used to say, after my bachelor's, I would do an MA in finance. I would do, in fact, even I had started CPAs. I would even tell you, me being the person who did it, I even don't know where I stopped at. Because I felt I was not passionate with that. One of the greatest thing, I think I discovered my passion after my undergraduate, and that's why you realized instead of doing an MBA in finance, I did a postgraduate diploma in teaching, that is in education, and then an MBA in strategic management, and now in counseling. You realize how I have veered so much of discovering my passion. I think most people who suffer a lot in veering off are people we call introverts. But when you are an extrovert and you speak to people, you realize that people will notice you very fast. You see, me being a public speaker, you'd go to places and you realize as you speak to people, you may not even get paid very well, but you realize you are connecting with people very fast. If you're an introvert, it becomes very hard for even people to understand you because you keep a lot to yourself. But it is always very important that even people who are in their careers, whether in undergraduates or in even working, it's good you interact with people. You interact with the environment, because as you interact with the environment, you also understand who you are. Number two, it's also good to listen to your inner voice. As much as you're sitting, like for example, me, one of my first job I got immediately I finished my undergraduate was an accounting job as a bursar in a school. And I would realize every time parents would come to visit the office to pay, I was very excited to parents who came and talked stories. It's as if, this work, I would tell them, stop fast paying, let's talk. You see, I realized I'm not so much into this, rather be engaging with people. So it is very easy to veer off, especially when you also don't become settled in your career, because there are two types of lives, life with books.
And then you flourish in that space,
you flourish
right?
in that. Otherwise, utakuta, for example, assume I was doing accounting today, I even doubt whether I would be a senior accountant in an organization. Why? Some of the habits or traits that a senior accountant would require to have, I may find myself not having them. Number one, integrity. Number two, thoroughness. Why? Because it's not something you love doing, so you may not be thorough in them. Maybe reports are needed tomorrow morning. You are not passionate in doing this one. How would you even give those reports?
Yes.
You'd find yourself delegating and not taking accountability. Actually, a person, we usually say, by 30, everybody should have discovered their passion. You are given a room to make mistake between 24 to 29. But as you clock 30, you should not be climbing the ladder of your passion. Otherwise, you will find so many people, they are climbing a ladder that is leaning against a wrong wall. That's what I did. I first of all myself, it's true I'm climbing, but against what wall? The right wall or the wrong wall? Okay. And I can tell you, in my book, I call them the 5 P's. If every person, let me go them through very fast. Number 1 P is passion. What are you passionate about? Forget whether you are educated or not. What do you love doing? Number 2 P. Make sure that any career path you follow, one day it will pay you back. Because then if it doesn't pay you back, remember one day you'll be a mother, you'll be a father, it must pay you. Number 3, personality. something like medicine requires very quiet people. You cannot have a doctor who is making a lot of noise because, even they don't have time even to listen to people. Number 4 is the prevailing market. That career that you are doing, what is the market? How is the market trend, Because by the end of the day, like for example, right now, there are some courses that are becoming irrelevant right now.
Yes.
So you ask yourself, whatever, like you say, like right now, me being a counselor, you realize like it is things that people right now need a lot of help because there is a lot of mental health issues. So I also pursue a career that I think this is where people are going. So there's no author who can write a moving book if you don't have a burden, because what you'll do, you'll find yourself googling content from the internet to write. But when you write from a burden, content starts flowing from you. So me, I used to go to church. I'm raised in a church, and one of the things that struck me in church, every church I went to visit, women were more than men, and I think that is the same today. And so I realized, why do this all? Your dad is telling you go to Sunday school, but when you go to church, you realize the boys are many, the girls are equivalent with the boys, but when they transit to around 20, 30, 40. It's as if there's somewhere that men don't come to church or something like that. And then you realize men are getting frustrated in life, something like that. So I said, what about issues of boys? And then when I was raised, I remember every time my sister used to cry, our parents could sympathize with her. But every time I cried, they say, wanaume hawaliangi. Then I felt, I think I have bottled up a lot of pain. And as I see a lot of boys being brought up, that is what is happening. I went to secondary school and found a different issue again. I would see in a mixed school, every time a girl would insult a boy, the teachers would call the two. And the person they would ask the question, amekufanya nini? They would ask the girl, what has he done? So the boys always became victim. And I think something need to be addressed. God created a burden in me. And you see, once God creates a burden in you, he opens your eyes. And then you start seeing things in a dimension that other people cannot see. And that's how the book was born. See, the two most important things an author should never ignore, besides the content, is the title of the book. And then number 2, the market. Let me start with the title of the book. I have seen, because I meet so many authors, they have very good content inside, but the title push people away. One of the things that will make the reader of the book to interact with the book itself is the title.
Yes. Because
you can have very good content, but the title keeps people off. What clicks in the reader's mind? Number 2 is the market. Who are you targeting? For example, are you targeting families? Because as much as you are supposed to target the general read, this segment of people you read. For example, me, I said, even if everybody will not read my book, any parent with a boy at home will have to buy this book. So those two things are very important. And once the author gets those, then the journey of publishing begins. Because number 1, already the market is there. And number 2, your book is already catching to because there are so many millions of books in the street. What will make this person not get that but get this? And that's why you see, even when these advertisers are advertising, like when I was young, I loved this product called Omo. They kept changing the name. I don't know whether they changed the content. They started with Omo, then Omo with Powerform, then Omo with Powerform Plus. You see, they keep addressing so that they can make you excited. Right. You see, one of the things that made it easy for me to write this book is because I have been a boy before, and therefore the content can flow with it. Because you see, once the reader starts reading your book, they now start connecting with you as an author. Not necessarily the content. It's like they are buying into you. They can say, oh, I can understand what Paul meant here. They see the person in you. They start feeling the person in you. And that's why I'm saying content is obtained from 2 sources. Number 1, from your journey as a person. Primary source, that is you yourself. In fact, me, every time I want to write a book, because I have written several, I say, do we have authors around this area who have written what I have written? So what you know is not all that there is in the world. It is good you ask yourself. Like, for example, you see this book.
Yes.
If you came to my library, I have 33 books on boys. So I have already read 33 content before I wrote mine. So don't just go, think what all that you know is all that there is, get secondary information, and then ensure that whatever you are writing is relevant to what is happening right now. Because you see, I've listened to these traditional fathers, our traditional fathers who are bringing back cultures.
Yes.
Saying that, you see, forsaking culture is the reason as to why boys are going astray. That is very wrong, because you see, world is not going backward, it's going forward. I'm so sure even if our grandfathers were living today, they will not be wearing shukas, because fashion is also part of life. So you get to listen to what is happening. Is it westernization that is causing? Is it exposure to knowledge? You have also to be conversant with what is happening in the trading environment. So three things: primary source, listen to the content you have, the conviction you have, listen to what people in your jurisdiction of writing, if it is boys, if it is girls, if it is story, what they are saying, and then thirdly, it's also being apt to what is happening in the trading. There are two approaches you can pursue. Number one is self-publication. Self-publication is where you go to a lady there, tell her to type for you. So now whatever you had written with a pen or a pencil is already typed.
Yes.
Once it is typed, the second person you should approach is a person called an editor. An editor is to make sure that your grammatical issues is right, your typos are well corrected, so that by the end of the day, you may even find 100 pages book may even end up becoming 60, because some of the ideas you'll be told you repeated yourself. Whatever you said in chapter 3 seems to be repeated in chapter 7. So after that, he or she can also tell you, add this. There is a disconnection between chapter 1 and chapter 7. That is the work of an editor. Probably somebody who can charge you in a market range of 20,000 to 30,000. After that is done, now you have a book in raw data.
Yes.
The third place to go from an editor is to go to a designer. The designer is supposed to design, so like you see, even Boys Cry book has pictorials. If you feel like you want some pictorials to speak more, has pictorials, because the age it is addressing is for boys. Boys connect very well with pictures.
Yes.
So the work of a designer is to design for you the cover that will connect with the content in the book. You see, like my book, even Boys Cry, has a lion crying.
Yes.
It is rare for lions to cry because they are said to be bold. The same case, boys are told they should never cry, while in the real sense they also go through challenges. So he gives you the image of a picture he wants you to have, how your book should look like, and then also arrange your interior. One of the things I've realized of late, let your book not be very boring to read. It can be boring because of two areas. Number one, the font. There are some fonts that are very boring to read, that are not appealing to they look like it's a letter from a principal or a letter from a chief.
Yes.
So the font, they'll help you to read. And then also the interior decoration. Very important. There is a book I'm reading currently, I can't remember the name, but I love what is making me to flow with it. It is the interior decoration. You see a flower there, you feel very good. You see a cup there.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. So from a designer now, you can now approach these publishers. And whatever I'm talking about now, these publishers could be Moran,
yes,
or these renowned publishers. You can tell them, what they'll ask you is, do you already have your manuscript ready? Manuscript means you have already done everything. The only thing they do is to put it in a machine for books to run. Or they can tell you, we don't want to go that way. Bring your work as it is. We'll do the design for you. We'll do the editing for you. And that's the route that even Boys Cry followed. I had a reason for me following that because I had already done self-publishing. So I know the advantages of unaenda unaambia huyu do for me this editing. Tunamalizana na wewe now. And then I go to a guy and tell him, how much would you charge me to print 1,000? People love that way. It has advantages, it has disadvantage. Giving the publisher the whole work has advantages, and so there are two ways they do everything, or self-publishing where you do things bit by bit. You'll be very amazed to realize that my first edition of Even Boys Cry, I only had 5,000. And by God's grace, a friend of mine, and that's why I talked about market. The time I wrote this book was during the circumcision period. Even with 5,000, I produced, I think, 100 copies because the person who published for me gave me installment and on credit. You'll be very much shocked. Having spent 5,000, I sold books worth 70,000 that particular day. So nobody is writing a book so that you can go and stock it in the market. I have seen so many others who published the first 100 books, maybe with small capital. But remember, this is money you have already invested somewhere and you need to get it back. So as long as the market is right, you can even spend as least as 10,000 to get the first 5 books. So you can even start with 10,000. I know of self-publishers who can help you get the first 20 books, the first 50 book with a minimum of 20,000. You are good to go. The second book is called Active Dad Lucky Sons. There's nobody who influences a son like a father. And I'm not just talking of having a father, I'm talking of an available father, a father who is active. The third one is called Why Most Men Don't Go to Church. See, that was the third one. The fourth one is Firstborn Battles. There's nobody who suffers in a family like a firstborn. But from the curse of Cain, firstborn inherited a lot of problems. And then there is another one called Parenting Without Stress. That now has been my best-selling books currently. You know, Parenting Without Stress. You know, fighting family battles. Yeah. Or how to fight for your family.
Right.
I would tell them to write on qualified mentors. Moran was the best thing I found. I would say that 100 times. And they gave me insights that I had ignored from my previous. You see, somebody told me this and I love it. He told me that God will only be giving you a platform once. How you utilize it is what matters. David had only one opportunity to fight Goliath. If he would have messed with the tactics, and that's why he came up polished. Let them approach, recognized publishers. And by the way, for example, let me give you a very good example. Moran is just across Ngara. Just go visit them, tell them, I want to write a book. You start there. Please don't start ignorantly because you'll read ignorantly also.